I'm Chris Sanchez, and welcome to Sonoma Views, where we talk real estate, property management, restaurant reviews, what's going on in Sonoma County, and everything in between. Today's topic is on property management and landlording. Specifically, should you increase the rent amount on your rental property when the tenant is at the end of the 1-year lease? So if you have a tenant under a 1-year lease agreement and you're coming up to the end of that lease, should you automatically raise the rent? All right, so first of all, I will let you know, as you will come to see on some of the other videos, is unfortunately there's not a right or wrong answer. Now, if it was within the law, California law, that's very black and white. So either it's legal or it's not legal. But within the legal framework, I'll give you my perspective, what I believe is the best approach. Unfortunately, there's no right or wrong answer. It just comes down to your tolerance, how much risk you're willing to take, how conservative you are, and your own goals and objectives with that rental property and your history with those tenants. Now, you might be a landlord doing it all yourself, no property management involved. A little bit different dynamic, but with a property management company, you will be able to get feedback also, not just from yourself as a landlord, but the property management, the professional feedback as far as how well that property is performing and whether or not, or how the market's doing as well. So whether or not you should increase the rents. All right. So there's actually a sub question in here as well. And that is, should you, at the end of the 1-year lease, should you renew the lease? Should you extend it for another year? Or should you leave it on a month to month? Or should you just let the tenants be in there? They have a start date and an end date, and they're out at the end of the lease term. So that's sort of a sub question, and maybe I'll get to answer it here. All right, so getting back to it. One, what I like to do, and I generally do with the properties that I manage is, and I do this at scale, by the way, so I have a broad perspective. Generally, a $100 increase for tenants who are renting a place at the end of 1 year. Generally, the rent amount goes up by $100. Now, don't let that be the guiding light or the rule of thumb. Be careful in your specific situation. Okay, be very, very careful right now. We're in April 2019. We are still under the state of emergency. This is in Sonoma County. We had wildfires, so we're in a recovery area, Northern California, and this happened in October 2017. So we are still currently under a state of emergency, and there is a rent stabilization. There's a rent control in place right now, so we cannot increase. Price gouging is the term. Landlords cannot price gouge and completely inflate the rental prices, immediately following the disaster. So back to my question. My typical scenario is going to be a $100 increase at the end of the 1 year. So the right time to check in is around month number 9, month number 10 of a 12-month lease. Go in, check in on them. Do a routine property inspection just to look at the condition of the property, check for maintenance, repairs. That is the opportunity also to get in contact with your tenants and just find out what their plans are. You might have roommates who are living together. I'm in Rohnert Park, so Sonoma State University is here in our backyard, and we have, we manage properties where there's multiple tenants or roommates. Some of them are full-time college students. So you have 3-4 people living together. You don't know, unless you ask or they speak up in advance, who's coming, who's staying, is everybody leaving, coming at the end of the school year. So a lot of those leases are 1-year term. So to be proactive, get ahead of it, you could reach out to the tenants, figure out what their plans are. Now, what the tenants' plans are, that'll give you some feedback as far as what you could expect. Is there going to be an upcoming vacancy or not? Also, you want to align that with your objectives, your plans for that property. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say we're in month number 10 and May 31st is just around the corner and we get a lot of people moving out at the end of May. College rentals, just regular rentals in this area, it is peak moving season, May, June. We're coming up to Memorial Day. We're going to have June, and that's the summer season. Kids are out of school, and that's when families move. So there are going to be a lot of people moving in and out in May, June, July. All right, so what are your plans? If your goal is to sell that rental property, then no, it doesn't matter that whether you increase the rent amount, but it might determine whether, if you plan to sell it, it might determine whether you extend that lease for short term, long term, or don't extend the lease at all. Maybe keep it on a month-to-month basis, depending on your plans, or give the tenants a notice, either a 60-day notice to vacate, 60 days to move out, or if it's on a fixed term lease, you could do a notice, a non-renewal of that lease. Now, when you're on a fixed lease term, it has a beginning date and it has an end date. So if they're supposed to be out May 31st, that's when the lease ends, then you should give, double check with your local laws, ordinances. This is California. See how much notice you need to give those tenants if your objective is to have them move out, vacate the property, so you have it vacant, and then you could do, re-rent it again or put it on the market for sale, whatever you want to do. In a typical 1-year lease, we would give a 30-day notice to move out. If the tenant has been living there more than 2 years or more than 1 year, it would be a 60-day notice. But again, just check on the legally required notice time, and then whether or not you have a Section 8 tenant, that's a different story. So just double check before you jump the gun and give somebody a notice to move out, because you might be doing that illegally, unknowingly, and with good intentions. So if a tenant, so this is how I determine it, and this is my standard operating procedure. It depends on the current market rents. So right now, 2019, we're in April, it's taking me longer to rent a place at what the market was 1 year, 2 years ago. If I were to take a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single family home in Santa Rosa, and it was rented at $2,800 2 years ago or a year ago, I will probably not be able to get $2,800 for that same house today. Okay, it's just the market has shifted, the market has changed. If I try to re-rent it at $2,800, Facebook stuff coming through. If I try to rent it at $2,800, it may sit on the market a while. We might lose a month, and then we had no rental income for the landlord or no income for ourselves. So it might not be the smartest thing. So you have to be aware of what the current market conditions are. Pick your battles. Now, as a matter of fact, I do have some renewals right now, and my recommendation, even though my general recommendation is an increase, a $100 increase going into the second year. Right now, it's we're lucky to have good tenants. Market is shifting. There's more value in getting the tenants to agree to another 1-year lease. So just extend the lease. Do not have a vacancy right now, and just let it ride. Don't touch the monthly rent. So it's going to come down to math. If you increase the rent amount, I just realized this is going to get longer than than I wanted it to be, but hopefully this is good, valuable content. Anytime you increase a rent amount, it could trigger a potential move out. I'll repeat that. Anytime you give a tenant a rental increase, whether it be $25, $50, $100, $200, 5% increase, 10% increase, you name it, potentially they could be sort of priced out, if you will, beyond their comfort zone. And sometimes you don't know what that is. $50 difference or $100 difference might say, you know what, it's not worth it for this place. I'm going to go find something else. Okay, so you could actually end up pricing your own tenants out. Some landlords have that as a strategy. Some landlords might do it unintentionally. They're just increasing the rents and then just realize, oh shit, tenants are moving out. They give us a 30-day notice. Okay, they're moving out. And then you have vacancy, cleaning, repairs, and turnover expenses, maybe leasing commissions if you're working with a property management company. So there's money involved in every turnover. So in that scenario, and this is why right now I am I'm conservative. I'm playing it safe. If we have good quality tenants, they're taking care of the properties. My recommendation is just renew the lease, let it ride for another year. Okay, we have good tenants. They're taking care of the property. Nothing wrong. Let it go. So the math, here's the mathematics behind it. If you increase the rent by $100, that is over the course of a year. If you have a 12-month lease, a 1-year lease, that $100 equals $1,200 in increased gross rental income. Money coming in every month. Now, remember, if you're going to increase the rent amount and it's less than 10%, it's a 30-day notice. So April 1st, no joke, April 1st, you give a tenant a 30-day notice that you're increasing the rent. That could become effective as early as May 1st. April has 30 days. So, or you would do that at the end of March. So still, your effective rent isn't for 30 days after you serve a legal notice that there's going to be a rent increase, as long as they're not under a fixed term lease. So a lot of moving variables here, and hopefully you could catch up. And by the way, I'm happy to answer any questions and any comments that come in below this on the YouTube channel. So there's that part. If you are running a single family home, or maybe a higher end single family home, the rent amount matters. Put it to you this way. Let's assume it's a $3,000 rental, which they're around here. Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, nice properties could be renting for $2,800, $3,000 per month. Awesome. So you have a tenant at $3,000. If you increase their rent amount from $3,000 to say $3,100, and they said it's not worth it, I'm out of here, then now you have vacancy. That vacancy, if you're not able to fill it within, well, let's just say 2 weeks, half of $3,000 is $1,500. So let's say it took you 2 weeks from the moment that tenant A moves out to tenant B moving in. They moved out, say May 1st, and May 15th, the new one moved in. You lost half a month of rental income, which is $1,500. Whereas $1,500 loss against the $1,200 potential gain that you were going to get by increasing the rent $100. Now, if it's vacant for a full month, that's $3,000 down. So no rental income during that month. Plus you had potentially cleaning expenses, leasing commission, advertising fees, whatever it takes, and you have to make repairs. The place has to be turned over in between tenants. So maybe you're in new carpeting, maybe you're new paint, but you don't do those things when the tenant's still living in there. So they're going to be expenses, which is why I first and foremost check out what the market's doing, check in with the tenant, see what their plans are. If they like the place and they like it, they love the neighborhood, the kids are in school, they like that it's close to the park, they don't want to leave, it's good news to a tenant. Hey, the owner's not going to sell this. They're not going to kick us out. So 2 good news. And then you come in and say, okay, right now the market has stabilized. We realize what's available out there. Appreciate you as tenants. We're just going to renew the lease, and good. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. We're doing a lot of those. Last point. So hopefully that answered the question. I generally do increase it at the end of the term because it sets the precedent where in a rising market, increasing rental rates, it helps keep a property up to the market rent where it should be. And that's a good strategy because you don't want to be too far off from the market rents. So naturally, $50 increase, $100 increase, but be careful to the percentage. This is going to be a different video, different topic, but right now we're under a rent stabilization. We cannot increase the rent more than 10% right now. And this is going back to October 2017. So check your local ordinance. That's all I got to say. Make sure you're not violating laws by increasing the rent too much. So I generally increase, but right now the market is shifting. I'd say no, there is more value, more benefit to, and I represent the landlords, the property owners. There's more value in knowing next month we're getting the rent paid as normal, and we don't have to put it on the market. We don't have to showing and have turnover expenses and potentially be vacant for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it takes, if we miss the mark as far as what the market is asking for or what it will take to attract a clean quality tenant. All right. The other thing to consider is whether you're going to extend the lease or not, or keep them on a month to month. It all depends on your goals and objectives, what you plan to do with that property. In my opinion, there's more value to having a signed agreement, renewing it for 1 year, rather than keeping it on a month to month. However, that decision should be based on where you are now as the landlord, the property owner, what your plans are right now. Do you see yourself right now, based on the information you have right now, where you are in your life, do you see yourself selling that property within the next year? Do you see yourself wanting to move into that property within the next year? So those are the two main items, whether or not you should keep them on a month to month or renew the lease. So there's more value, in my opinion, to renew the lease for 1 year so that the tenants in November, December decide not to break the lease, move away, and now you have a vacancy in December. Not the best time. Trust me, it's not the best time to have a vacancy during the month of December. But if you're in June and you renew that lease, you would have potentially a vacancy at the end of that lease term, and then the tenants are more committed to stay in the property, ride it through winter, and you have leverage if the tenants want to break their lease. Now, if your plans are something else, like you don't know if you want to sell, you want to wait to see what's going to go on with the real estate values, and you want that flexibility, then even though the tenants want a 1 year lease, you don't have to agree to it. Just keep them on a month to month. The downside is if the tenants don't have that security of we have housing and our rent is locked in, they don't have a lease, fixed contract, and it's month to month, then who knows, maybe they go find somewhere else to live where they do have that peace of mind. So there's a trade-off there. So the month to month gives you the flexibility, whereas the fixed 1 year lease term, or 6 month or 9 month, any fixed term gives you a commitment from both parties. I hope I answered the question. This got longer than I expected. I really appreciate you watching. I'm Chris Sanchez. This is Sonoma Views. We're going to keep cranking out these videos. I got restaurant reviews coming up. I have some interviews that are lined up. I got some quality people within the community that I want to be able to provide educational value to you, the audience. If you've enjoyed this in any way, you receive benefit value, if you're on YouTube, you could subscribe so you can get future videos. And obviously this is going to be on Facebook and social media as well. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris Sanchez, and I'm out.